Today I am back in Macon, Georgia, and the story that we're going to talk about today, it's a wild one that involves kidnapping and embezzlement and murder, theft, you name it. It's a crazy story. It's an interesting story, but very crazy and very tragic. I'm going to spend this entire day today, this entire video, going around to the locations here in Macon where the story took place, and I'm going to tell it from start to finish with all of its crazy details. This video today, this is the murder of Gail Spencer. "58-year-old Gail Spencer was born and raised here in Macon, Georgia. She graduated here from Central High School, and by the year 2012, Gail owned her own home, and she had a great job working here in this building. They are no longer here, but it was Calder Pinkston and Associates, a very renowned law firm. Now, Gail did not have her law degree. She didn't try cases in court. She was a legal secretary for the company, and she was in charge of like the financial accounts. Calder Pinkston and Associates had accounts, with people from all over the place, so they often dealt with large sums of money. And it was Gail who was, in charge of all of it. Few people at the law firm actually had access to the financial parts of it like Gail did. In fact, other than the owners or the partners, Gail may have been the only person who had access to that kind of stuff. In September of 2012, the law firm hired a new secretary just to file paperwork and take notes and that kind of stuff, and her name was Tracy Jones. She didn't have anything to do with law or money or anything like that. Her job was just to answer phones and take notes, and she was just a secretary, nothing else. Tracy Jones, she had a problem with ethics. After working at Calder Pinkston and Associates for only a week or two, Tracy randomly decides that she wants to try to figure out how she can steal money from this law firm, and she very quickly realized that she would have to go through Gail to take anything. One day after work, Tracy went home and she got with her boyfriend, and they developed a plan to use Gail's access codes to steal a bunch of money from the law firm. So Tracy's boyfriend, he goes out and recruits a couple of his friends, and they spend a few weeks going over the details of their crime. While he's doing that, one day out of the blue, while Tracy's at work, she asks Gail for her address. She tells her that she wants to add her to her Christmas card list. But at first, Gail was a little suspect of this. She didn't really know this new girl, but she gave it to her anyway, which eventually wound up giving Tracy and her boyfriend Gail's address. Eventually, the couple felt like their plan was ready, and it was time to put their plan in motion. So on the morning of October the 6th in 2012, it was a Friday. Gail, she had just gotten up and she was getting ready for work. She was like curling her hair and putting her makeup on, and unbeknownst to her, Tracy Jones, Tracy's boyfriend Brett Kelly, and one of Brett Kelly's friends, Keith Dozier, they were all on their way over to Gail Spencer's home. Tracy winds up dropping Brett and this Keith Dozier off down the street, and then Tracy pulls up and she parks right in front of Gail's home. Tracy gets out and she walks up to Gail's door and she knocks, and when Gail answers, surprised to see Tracy standing here at her home, Tracy acts like it was just a random chance that she was here at Gail's house and that her car had just broke down, and then she realized this was the street that Gail had given her the address for. So she asked Gail if she can come in and use her bathroom and use her phone. And Gail Spencer, she was just an absolutely incredible person. She was so nice. So she said yes, and she let Tracy in. Gail had no way of knowing at that moment, though, how much of a bad idea this really was. Gail tells Tracy to come on in, and once Gail says to come in, she turns to move out of the way so that Tracy can get through the door. And it's at that moment, Brett Kelly and Keith Dozier, they like slam the door open and they bum rush their way into Gail's home. As they're running in past the door, they wind up grabbing Gail and knocking her to the ground. And all of this is happening in a split second. So Gail really doesn't have any time to think or react to what's going on. Once they get inside and they like have Gail, Tracy quietly and quickly comes through the door, and then she closes the door behind them so that none of the neighbors can see anything that's going on. And then they all get inside. They grab a kitchen chair out of Gail's kitchen and they tie her up to it. And while they're doing this, Gail's like screaming and looking at Tracy, asking her, "Why are you doing this? What do you want?" It's at this point that Tracy proceeds to tell Gail the plans. Like, they tell her they promise they're not going to hurt her. They just want to steal money from Calder Pinkston. Now, of course, we know after the fact that this was all a lie. But in the moment, I guess they were just trying to calm Gail down. After Tracy tells her all this, Gail is like fearing for her life. So she gives Tracy Jones her access codes to the computers, and she tells her where her key fob is that will allow her access into the financial stuff. And once Tracy got everything she needed to carry out this theft, Tracy just walks out the door and she gets in her car and she heads home. Her car was working just fine. It was all a ruse. When Tracy left, she left by herself, leaving Brett Kelly and Keith Dozier in Gail's home all alone with her. After Tracy left, she immediately came back right here to her apartment and she got ready for work. And then while she was like on her way to the law office, she uses Gail's phone and she sent a text to Calder Pinkston pretending to be Gail. And she says that Gail isn't feeling well and that she's not going to be coming into work today. Tracy gets here to the office that day at her normal time and she pretends that it's just another day. But throughout that day, periodically, she went into their computer systems and she used Gail's key fob and her access codes, and she would go on to transfer nearly $900,000 from an escrow account of Calder Pinkston's. In the planning stages of this crime, this group, they recruited Brett Kelly's sister. Her name was Courtney Kelly. So that morning, while the three of them were going into Gail's home and taking her hostage and getting all of the stuff they needed, Courtney Kelly starts off her day, and as soon as the local banks open, she starts going from bank to bank to bank, opening multiple different accounts, all in the Macon area. Throughout the day, when these accounts get opened, and she gets the account numbers, she immediately would send those account numbers to Tracy, and then Tracy would deposit a large sum of money into that account instantly. Then a few hours later, as Courtney was in the next bank and she got the next account number, they would do it again. And then they did it again for the third time, almost towards the end of the day. The money was transferred in like three smaller, like one 400,000 and then a 200,000 and then another 200 something thousand. And all total, it came out to be $885,000 that they transferred into three different accounts, all with Courtney Kelly's name on them. Tracy didn't want to make anything look super obvious this day, which is why she did it in those three increments of smaller amounts. That way it would avoid any kind of suspicion that she had taken this money out of the escrow account, which was loaded because they had just completed a sale. Now, their plan was that this was all happening on a Friday, right before a holiday weekend. That meant the office was going to be closed for 3 whole days, and that would give them plenty of time before anyone at Calder Pinkston would realize that this money was gone. That way the 4 thieves could, do this on the Friday, and then at some point over the weekend, they could all load up together, and they were going to leave the country, and then they would be gone by Tuesday when the office reopened. While all this was going on at the office, back at Gail's home, when Tracy left, Gail was tied up to a kitchen chair, and she was just left there with Brett Kelly and Keith Dozier. Well, shortly after Tracy left, Brett Kelly actually untied Gail, and he forced her into her bedroom. He threw all of her clothes out of her closet and onto the floor, He threw a couple of pillows down in the closet, and he made Gail sit in her closet on the floor for a couple of the hours. And while she was in there in the closet, he and Keith somewhat rummaged through her home. They found some alcohol, and they started drinking it, and actually got drunk and stayed drunk most of the day. And then they rummaged through her purse and her medicine cabinets, and they found several bottles of prescription narcotics that they started taking on top of all the alcohol. At some point, after Gail had been in that closet for a few hours, she started complaining that her legs and ankles were swelling up and hurting. So Brett allowed her to come out of the closet, and he allowed her to climb up in her bed, and she was able to lay there for the rest of the day, and she watched TV. And she stayed there all day long with these two teenage guys just standing over the top of her. As the day went along and it started becoming evening time, Brett started getting very anxious. I mean, he was drunk and he was high, and he was very panicky that something was going to go wrong and they were going to get busted. And at about 4:30, somewhere in there, he gets a text from Tracy. She had just finished transferring all the money into those accounts, and she was leaving work for the day. So she sends Brett a text that just says, "Do it." Well, Brett knew what it meant. So he gets up and he made his way back into Gail's bedroom. He points the gun at her head, and he proceeded to sexually assault her right there in her own bed, all while she's screaming and pleading for him to stop. He didn't. And once he finished, he grabbed one of the pillows up from the top of the bed, and he placed it over her head for a moment, trying to smother her, but it only took a second, and he was like, "This ain't gonna work." So he gets up from where they are in the bedroom, and he walks into the kitchen, still butt naked from assaulting her. And he grabs a plastic trash bag. He takes that trash bag and he puts it over her head, and he pulls it tight and holds it there while Gail Spencer suffocates to death. Brett was the only person involved of this part of the crime. Brett would actually later go on to deny that he had assaulted Gail in this way.
Brett, did you have sex with her?
No, I did not.
Why is she had tears in her vagina?
He also apparently told Tracy that he had done this or some stuff like this to her, because she turned around and told law enforcement about it later on.
He told me that he made her give him a blowjob, and that pissed me off, and I told him that was stupid, that he should not have done that that should not have happened at all, and no, I never told him to do it.
And then there was Keith Dozier, who was also there in the house, and he also said that Brett had done this to her, all while this Keith Dozier stood in the corner. He watched the entire assault, and then he watched as Brett took her life immediately afterwards. These are some sick individuals, not only for Brett, because of the act of, but then for this Keith Dozier to just stand there and watch. And Lord knows what he was doing while he was standing there watching this go on. They're all super messed up in the head. This is just absolutely disgusting. Now, after Gail had passed away, Brett and Keith, they continued to rummage through her house for just a little bit. They took any money and or valuables that she had, like jewelry, that kind of stuff. They didn't go so far as to grab big screens off the wall or anything like that. It was just small stuff that was valuable. They loaded up all of her prescription medication that was a narcotic, and they just simply left her home. They took Gail's car and they left like nothing ever happened. On their way back to their apartment, Brett and Keith stopped on the side of a bridge, and they wound up throwing that gun over the edge down into a river. And then they stopped in a church parking lot where they abandoned Gail's car, and they walked home from there. As they were walking home, they would throw Gail's car keys into just a random trash can that they were walking past. They went back to their apartment, and then they just played video games for the rest of the evening. The week prior to her death, Gail had agreed to let the neighbors' dogs in and out each day and night while they were out of town on vacation. So then on the day of Gail's death, this was the day that they were actually returning home. So within a few hours of Gail dying, they came home and they went over to Gail's to let her know that they were back home. And they went up and they knocked on the door and they got no answer. They were able to see through the windows that something was going on in the house. Like everything was kind of disheveled. And then Gail's front door, when they knocked, it was as cold as ice. Like the AC was down as low as it could possibly go. So they immediately called 911 and told them that, you know, they were neighbors of Gail's and they believed something was going on and they just wanted a welfare check. Police swarmed Gail's home here. They make entry only to find Gail Spencer still laying in her bed. She was deceased and she still had the trash bag over her head. In the first few days of the investigation, law enforcement, they hadn't put all the dots together yet. They didn't know this was related to Gail's work because it was a holiday weekend. It actually hindered them from connecting all of those dots. And because of that, this gave this group of murderous thieves this entire weekend to say their goodbyes and to get out of town. So they actually had planned to like say their goodbyes and spend time with their family on the Saturday. And then at some point on Sunday, they were all going to load up and start heading out of town. That way they had that entire day, Monday, as like a full day's head start before law enforcement started putting all the pieces together. At some point on that Saturday, Courtney Kelly, who at this moment, she had all of the money. They were in accounts that were under her name and she was the only one with access to them. Well, she starts becoming paranoid and she thinks that the other guys are like plotting against her. So she just leaves and she takes all of the access to the $900,000 with her when she goes. She would wind up heading over to Atlanta and then back to Macon several times throughout this weekend, spending over $20,000 in just a little over 24 hours. Now, after the fact, we know that she bought a ton of makeup, expensive makeup. She bought jewelry and she stayed in a very fancy Hilton hotel and she like got the most expensive room she could get with room service and everything. She went all out throughout that weekend. While she was out living it up, these other three guys were blowing up her phone trying to get a hold of her. She's got all the money and they can't access it. And now they can't get a hold of her to get any of the money so that they can get out of town before the police catch on. The other three guys feel like they're screwed now. They're freaking out that they're going to get caught by law enforcement because they can't leave town. They're broke without that money, which forces these guys to like sit down and come up with a new plan. So they very quickly and very sloppily throw together this new idea. And as I said earlier, this was a holiday weekend, so the law firm was going to be closed until Tuesday. So they figure that it will at least be, you know, at some point Tuesday before anyone at the office figures out that they had stolen the money. So they're figuring that Tracy can get up and go to work Tuesday morning like normal, and then she can transfer another large sum of money into one of their accounts that they can access. And then as soon as she does that, she can immediately get up and just leave or tell them that she's sick and she needs to go or something to get out of there. And then they will quickly load up and head out of town. They just won't have that full day's head start like they originally had. So Tuesday morning finally comes for them. Tracy gets up and she puts on some nice clothes and she heads into Calder Pinkston, preparing to enact this new plan. But what she doesn't know is at the same time she's on her way to work, law enforcement is also on their way to the law office so that they can talk to Calder Pinkston and inform them of Gail's death. So that morning, Tracy, she shows up like normal and she goes and she sits down at her computer, and at the very start of the day, she logs in again and she wire transfers nearly $500,000. This is an additional $500,000 on top of that almost $900,000 that they already got. And she wire transfers that into a bank account with her name on it. Because she had emptied the escrow account on that Friday, this time she didn't take it from that escrow account. It came out of the law firm's everyday account, and it was very quickly noticed within minutes of her doing it. By the time that law enforcement arrived to talk to Calder Pinkston about Gail, Calder Pinkston had already known about this money coming out, and he knew that Tracy was the one that had taken it. At that point, when officers got there, he already knew that the escrow account was empty as well, because when he realized that first account was, had money coming out of it, he went looking and he found the escrow account was empty. So when the detectives show up, it's like right after Tracy transfers the money, and Calder Pinkston's able to quickly tell them what happened, and for law enforcement, all of the pieces started coming together. Before Tracy could get up and get out of the office that morning, law enforcement knew everything, and they quickly arrested Tracy Jones, and they carried her down to right here at the Macon Police Department for an interview. Unbeknownst to anyone else, at that same exact time, law enforcement gets a call from a guy named Dustin, and he says that he has information about Gail Spencer's death. Now, this Dustin guy, he was a friend of Brett Kelly's, and prior to the murder, when Brett was rounding up another person to go in with him, this was before he got Keith Dozier involved, he had originally contacted this Dustin guy to be involved with it. Dustin immediately told him no, and he tried to talk Brett out of doing it, telling him, you should think about the consequences here. You could ruin the rest of your life and those type things. So as the weekend goes by and Gail's death is like all over the news, and this Dustin guy sees this, he knew that he had had this discussion with Brett, and he didn't want to be a suspect or be charged or have any association with it at all. So he immediately contacts the law enforcement, and he gives them all of the text messages from Brett, and he gives them the names Brett Kelly and Tracy Jones. So the detectives already had that information before they sit down to talk to Tracy in that interview room. Initially, Tracy denied having anything to do with it, but they were able to get her to give them Brett Kelly's phone number, and with her right there in the room, they simply dialed the number. He answered, and a detective just asked him to come in so they could talk.
All right, let's call him. Put it right there. Put it down there where I can hear it, flat on the thing.
Hello?
Brett,
Yes, who's this?
this is Scott. How are you, bud?
Good, how are you?
Just to make sure I'm talking to the right Brett that I think I'm talking to, what's your last name, Brett?
Kelly?
Brett Kelly. Okay. You gonna come see me?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Where do you want me to come to?
All right, come to the detective bureau.
Unbelievably, Brett Kelly agrees, and he actually shows up within just a few minutes of them calling him. So detectives are able to sit down with him and Tracy, both of them, at the exact same time in different interrogation rooms.
You came down here on your own free will and everything, of
Yes, sir.
course. Okay, I appreciate you doing that.
Can I ask, was I on the phone with you?
No, why is that? Why you ask?
Well, I was wondering if I was on because I was on the phone with some detective.
Oh, yeah, that's Detective Chapman. Do you have any idea why you're down here?
No, sir.
None whatsoever.
None whatsoever.
Okay.
She held to her guns, and she continuously told them that she had nothing to do with Gail's death. Brett Kelly, on the other hand, he initially denied it.
Did you kill the lady over on Simpsonville Road?
No, I did not.
Were you there?
No, I was not.
Were you over there with Tracy? Did you were you in the car with Tracy?
No, I was not.
Okay. I don't know. I know that you're involved. Okay. No, and you know what I'm talking about. I can see it in your eyes.
All right, then tell me.
Okay. Do you want to talk to us about it or not?
Well, I got caught up here, and y'all haven't even told me the reason why I come up here.
All right.
So how am I gonna help y'all out what y'all need if I don't even have any help for myself? I watch the first 48 all the time.
I bet you
I know
do.
you're gonna tell me everything.
You know that I'm going to tell you everything.
Yes, that's how cops do it. I'm not stupid.
I'm not telling you nothing.
All right, well,
I'm giving you a chance to tell me about what happened over at Simpsonville Road with the elderly woman that died. Okay?
Okay.
So you want to go and tell me about it? No?
no, I don't know anything. I'm looking you dead in your eyes. I don't care what y'all say if I want to go down looking like a monster.
Fingerprints,
You got
hair
'em?
fibers, everything. Okay? All right, I just left the autopsy today.
Okay.
I could see it. Look, Brett.
You know how many cops say that they can see it in my eyes? Just because I got a weird look in my eye don't mean I did
Your heart dropped when I brought it up, son. I know you're lying, and I know you were there. Now
You got the evidence?
Yes, we've got
Oh, well,
evidence.
Once I see it, then that's it.
Oh, okay. You don't care about the fact that this woman was 58 years old and she's dead.
I'm sorry that happened.
All right, you don't care?
I didn't have nothing to do with it. I'm sorry. I did not kill the lady. I don't know anything.
Were you that tough with the lady? Do you know what her name was? Do you know what her name was? Look at me, Brett. Do you know what her name was? Okay.
What was it?
Her name was Gail Spencer. She was 58 years old. She had 2 grandbabies. Okay. Small. She had a son that loved her. She had a sister that loved her. Okay? She loved her job, and she had neighbors that loved her. Her name was Gail.
Okay, my name's Brett, and I didn't have anything to do involved with myself with that lady.
He eventually gave up after about an hour of them talking.
Well, I already know I'm gonna do time for this.
Okay.
I already know you don't sweet sugar the shit.
Okay. All right.
But I don't know if I can reduce my time.
Okay. We don't make promises here, but the fact that, you know.
As long as I don't get lethal injection.
Brett Kelly was still a little hesitant to like tell them everything and just, you know, give up. He was so upset that he had been caught that he even asked one of the detectives to say a prayer with him before he would say anything.
Can you say a prayer with me first, and I'll tell you everything, detail to detail.
You wanna lead it or
you do it, please?
Okay. I'm not very good with prayers, but
It don't matter.
Okay.
After that, you know, he still hasn't said anything yet. He asked to speak to his mom, and apparently he thought that there were no cameras in the room recording this, but he would go on to tell his mom that he did kill this lady.
Guy, call Mom.
Call your mother. Call your mother. Here.
Mom, don't say nothing. Just let me talk. I love you.
I love you.
Well, the cops know everything. Someone made a police report and had all the texting on it and the call information
Made a police report of what?
of what we did.
But I don't know what you've done. Everybody knows what you've done but me.
That's what I'm saying. They know what I done.
What did you do though?
I killed somebody.
Who?
This lady.
Why?
I don't know, Mom. I'm on the phone by myself, I think. I don't know. All I know is I love you.
I mean, I love you too, but why? The hell would put you up to that?
I don't know, Mom.
A gang?
No.
That Tracy woman?
No, Mom.
Brett wound up telling the detectives pretty much everything this group had done, from the embezzlement to the murder, all of this stuff.
I suffocated her.
What'd you suffocate her with?
Trash bag.
Trash bag?
Before Brett Kelly's interview was even finished, a group of officers raided their apartment here, and like up on a ledge in their kitchen, they found a manila folder, and in it was all of the banking information from all of these transactions that they had done over the weekend. There was signed documents. There was even some of the voided checks in there. Police had all the evidence. They were caught red-handed. They were actually able to log into the bank information, like their online banking, for the account that they had set up for Courtney Kelly, and they were able to see that she had rented a room in Warner Robins at a hotel, and they were able to go there to that hotel and take her into custody.
All 3 of them were being, I don't know, it just kind of seemed like they were being secretive about some things, and like there was a bunch of stuff I didn't know that was going on. I felt like at the apartment I was being watched because I was the source to getting the money.
And then the following day, Brett told him that he was supposed to be meeting up with Keith Dozier to give him his share of the money. He was supposed to be meeting up with him at a Steak and Shake, so officers were able to go to that Steak and Shake to meet him instead of Brett, and they were able to take him into custody.
He said he was gonna give me like $5,000. He told me that there's some lady, pretty much he just told me that we was just gonna be babysitting all day. And I was like, I was like, it sounds easy, but nothing's ever easy.
Agree with you on that.
At this point, though, they had not given Keith Dozier any share of any money. He hadn't received anything, and that was because Courtney had ran off with the first bit of money.
Did you get a passport? Did you get a passport?
No.
Oh, who the was supposed to take the fall for this?
But he ultimately broke down and he told them everything as well.
I don't believe you.
Okay,
man.
give me 10 minutes, all right? That's all I'm asking for is 10 minutes and another cigarette.
He got duct tape, tied her up, and she was so scared. She was shaking so bad. I thought she was gonna die from a heart attack or a stroke or something.
All four people, Brett Kelly, Keith Dozier, Courtney Kelly, and Tracy Jones, they were all arrested and charged with malice murder, felony murder, aggravated assault, burglary, false imprisonment, and theft by taking. And then Brett Kelly also got a felony aggravated sodomy for the assault. Three of them, Tracy Jones, Brett Kelly, and Courtney Kelly, they knew that the mountain of evidence against them was like, they had way too much evidence. And all of them attempted to get a better deal for themselves. So they all pled guilty, and all three were sentenced to life in prison. Brett and Tracy got life without the possibility of parole. Tracy for setting it up, and Brett because he was the one that actually assaulted her. And then Courtney, who was just like that driver, she got life with parole, so she'll be able to get out one day. Keith Dozier, however, he claimed that he had no part in the murder, that he had never received any of the money from the other conspirators, so he argued that he shouldn't be charged with her murder, the sodomy, or the theft, and his case went to trial. Keith Dozier was ultimately found guilty by a jury of his peers after only 3 hours of deliberating of malice murder, 3 counts of felony murder, aggravated assault, false imprisonment, and theft by taking. The only charge that he was acquitted on was the sodomy charge. That was it. The judge in Keith's case sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus 20 years. This is a horrible, horrible story that, never should have happened. Ultimately, Gail was tortured and she lost her life. The 4 murderers will spend the rest of their lives in prison, so their lives are gone. The law firm, Calder, Pinkston & Associates, will end up having to close its doors. The whole thing has just been a mess, and I don't get it. Does the thought that you might have a chance to get away with this outweigh all the destruction and devastation that comes along with it? 9 out of 10 times these people are caught. So I wonder what makes them think that they're going to be that one person that's going to be able to get away with it when all others have failed. It baffles me, and I'm likely to never understand. As you can see now, after Brett Kelly's sentencing, he has changed up his appearance quite a bit now, with tattoos all over his face and just looking weird. But since he's never getting out, I guess that really doesn't matter, because he'll be locked up for the rest of his life. It's not like he's ever going to have to go interview for a job or anything. The only thing you can say after this horrific tragedy that Gail suffered, she's definitely in a better place now. Her love was a blessing. That is going to do it for this video today, and this horrible, horrible, tragic murder of Gail Spencer. I want to thank you all so much for watching. You guys, I just can't thank you all enough. If you're new here, go down, hit that subscribe button, then hit that notification bell so you get notified every time I upload a video. If you're one of those interested in supporting the channel, there's links in the description box below you can check out. But really, I just can't thank you all enough for watching. I will see you again soon with another video, so please, all of you, stay safe and stay healthy. Much love to you all.